What is going on, everybody? He's just excited because he's excited. He can't wait because this just in, we're talking early look ahead to Notre Dame, a possible playoff opponent for them Georgia Bulldogs. Next, Locked On Bulldogs.
You are Locked On Bulldogs, your daily podcast on the Georgia Bulldogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What I feel like, Clint, is that we really thrive with the lights on. And so sometimes you just got to turn the lights on and go. You could prepare all you want. Hey, thanks for being here today. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app today for all of your Sugar Bowl ticket purchasing needs. We will talk more about them in a moment. Thanks for being a first listener. Thanks for being an everydayer here on the podcast. Excited to have you here every day. And by the way, there have been a lot of you this week who have been checking out the show, and so we appreciate it. If you're new, go ahead and subscribe on the YouTube channel. Subscribe, follow along on the whatever podcast listening apps, whether it's Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcast from. We would love to have you there. Clint,
yes,
we thought we're going to break this down into two episodes because we could talk about Indiana and Notre Dame. Maybe we'll do a third episode as to the team that we would rather play. But next weekend, a week from today, actually, as we're recording this, so this episode coming out on a Friday, Friday the 13th, by the way. Lucky day for Georgia because we don't have a football game next weekend. We're just going to rest.
Let's just observe, shall we?
Are going to play. The game's going to be in South Bend. It should be a really fun college atmosphere. A night game on Friday night in South Bend. Should be a fun time. Indiana, obviously, this up-and-coming upstart program, and Notre Dame, a traditional college football power. And so you've got some great narratives. You got some great storylines. We are going to talk about the actual teams, and we're going to start with Notre Dame. So what is Georgia getting if they get Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl? I think we all remember Georgia famously had the home and home with Notre Dame several years back, early in the Kirby Smart tenure. That victory in South Bend, still one of the most memorable in the 2017 season, really began everyone's belief in what this Georgia program could be, and ultimately what you saw come to fruition, making it to the national championship game that year, and then obviously going on to have sustained success. But these are two different programs now, Georgia and Notre Dame. Obviously different coaching staff for Notre Dame. And they've taken very different roads to get here, Clint, assuming that these two teams do match up against each other. Georgia, the hardest strength of schedule in the nation, and taken multiple losses on that schedule. Lost to Ole Miss, lost to Alabama. Multiple losses, might I add, to two teams not in the college football playoff.
That's interesting, Daniel,
because Georgia has beaten four teams, has won games 4 different times, I should say, against teams currently in the field of 12. All of that leads to the number one strength of schedule in the country. Notre Dame, on the other hand, has 0 wins that I would consider to be quality. Their best win is against Army.
But literally
on a neutral field, Army.
Okay. We have A&M on the schedule. Georgia Tech, maybe, if you want. Again, neutral field on that one, Georgia Tech.
It's not a great resume. Notre Dame, obviously, Texas A&M kind of falling off at the end of the year has hurt the appearance of the resume. That was a quality win when they got it. It's the NIU loss that really stands out on this resume. And so 2 very different paths. And 2 very different sets of results. I mean, I don't think I'm breaking any news here. We're going to get to kind of what we would like about this matchup in segment 2, maybe, Clint. And then in segment 3, we'll talk about what would scare us about a matchup with Notre Dame.
I like that.
But let's just call it what it is. Georgia, very difficult schedule, battle tested. But Georgia has been squeaking by some of these games, right? I don't have to tell you. Overtime in the SEC championship game, Clint. 8 overtimes against Georgia Tech. 1-point win earlier in the year against Kentucky. Like, Georgia has been skating by the skin of their teeth, you could say. If you're a Notre Dame fan, that's probably what you would say.
That's the narrative they're spinning over there right now, I guarantee you.
Whereas Notre Dame took the early season loss, Marcus Freeman, in classic Marcus Freeman style, who currently has losses to Marshall on his resume at Notre Dame. And we watched that Marshall Notre Dame game together, Clint, if you remember. I was at your house. We watched that game. That was a heck of a time. And then a loss to NIU earlier in the year. But since then, Notre Dame has been absolutely rolling people. Notre Dame has not been tested since September the 28th when they beat Louisville by 7 points. Now, Louisville, a decent team. I'm not here. Like, that's a reasonably quality ACC team.
They're a fine team.
Notre Dame wins that game by 7 points. That was September the 28th, Clint, when Alabama won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And they have not been tested even remotely since then. Notre Dame has been absolutely blowing fools out 49-7. 31-13, by the way, that's against Georgia Tech at Tech, a common opponent. Notre Dame handled them easily. 51-14, 52-3, 35-14, 49-14, and then a 2-touchdown win at USC last weekend. Or 2 weekends ago.
Yeah.
One team tested, difficult schedule, eking by. Another team untested, easy schedule, blowing people out. What do you make of the big picture comparison in those two? I think there's a reason, is what I'm getting at. I know we're a Georgia podcast and like we're whatever, but if I'm going to objectively look at this,
you should.
I think there's a reason for both teams to feel really optimistic heading into this college football playoff, right?
100%. If you look at how Notre Dame has won these games, Daniel, it hasn't been by gimmicky things. It hasn't been by simply not playing top talent. They actually line up and they play real football. They tackle well. They do the fun. I mean, Freeman does go ahead and coach college football well. He's not Mario Cristobal. Mario Cristobal gets down there and says, let's get the most talented guys on the field. I'm not going to coach you, develop you, or do time management to any degree whatsoever. Not even play calling. I'm just going to hope and flip a coin and maybe you'll beat them on the field. That's not what Marcus Freeman and the Fighting Irish do. They play really good football. They're sound. And
they're physical.
They're very physical. They have large offensive linemen. They have large defensive linemen. They got guys who fly around on the football field, and they got that grit to them. And again, I know that's an overused term, but that's what you see on the field. Now, Notre Dame, join a conference. First of all, just join a conference.
Not interested in doing it. Not interested. They're not going to do it.
They're not going to do it. I know. It's just ridiculous. However, they would give us some more data points. But Daniel, you said it. This is going to be, if Notre Dame beats Indiana, we're going to talk about a couple of statistical categories where there's a lot of similarities in this Indiana and Notre Dame game coming up. A lot of similarities.
Sure.
But I think just by and large, Dog fans, this is a buckle up the chin strap. We're not going to go ahead and out gimmick you, and they're not going to fall asleep at the wheel. This is going to be a hard fought win against Notre Dame if we play them, and if we win, it's going to be well earned. They embody their coach, right? And their coach is a no-nonsense, tough-nosed dude. And you see it on offense as well as on defense. Fundamentally sound all the way through. So, yeah, Georgia, this is not a cakewalk because of their schedule. Don't read that. Their schedule is weak. They are not.
You can play a weak schedule and be good. That's possible, right? Yeah. And, again, we've said this before. Marcus Freeman has losses to Marshall on the schedule. He's got on the resume. He's got losses to Northern Illinois on the resume. He also has played really well against big teams. Guess what, Georgia? You're not Northern Illinois. They're not going to be overlooking you in the college football playoff.
Remember when we got ran over by UMass because our guys were sleepy and overlooking? Like,
ran all over.
And then all of a sudden against Texas, we show up because the guys aren't overlooking. Okay, now so put that in reverse.
Don't look too hard at the schedule. You got to look at the team. That's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about things about this matchup that make us excited. And then we're going to talk about things about this matchup that might make us nervous. But first, I want to let you know about these.
Game Time, gametime.co. Game Time app is where you need to go right now, Daniel and I, when
Come
we
hang
are
out.
holding
Come
when we
hang
are
out. That's what
holding
we're trying to say.
sugar in a bowl in New
Yeah.
Orleans, where we are just walking around with bowls of sugar and people are like, what are you doing? Be like, don't worry about it.
I'll just be eating it with a spoon. Not
I
a
don't even
problem.
care right now. It makes the medicine
Mhm.
go down. We'll be in
does.
New Orleans. You should come check
By
it out.
medicine, you mean bourbon.
By
That's what you mean.
I didn't specify. The people can make their judgments as they need.
Yeah.
GameTime.co, Game Time app. Download it right now. If you need last minute tickets, if you get there and you get on a flight and then you're going to the game, don't worry. There's always a place on Game Time. Best prices, or they give you 110% of your money back to you. Views from the seat, put the slider over, and it'll give you everything all in pricing. No hidden fees, nothing like that. GameTime.co. Download it now. Use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's again, Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply.
All right, Clint.
Yeah, Daniel.
Let's jump back in and talk about what excites us as a Georgia fan about a matchup against Notre Dame.
Well, it's actually really unique to me because it goes back to something that when you look on very, very kind of like a glazing, if you will, on statistics and how Notre Dame has played, especially that game against USC, they had a couple of pick returns for touchdowns. They had a couple of very, very big chunk plays. That running back went off on them against USC's very, very porous run defense. Just again, it's USC, Lincoln Riley, porous run defense.
I've
said enough. Yep. But this is really unique to me. Notre Dame, 40th in the nation in total offense, Daniel. Okay. Not great, but scoring offense, Daniel, they're third in the nation in scoring, 40th in total
points
offense,
per game,
meaning
39.8 points per game, putting it on people.
What we're trying to say, they put it on people. Now, this should actually kind of excite you, because I think what this translates to is they don't have to go a great deal of distance to get their points. Their defense plays really well. And they put themselves in position to go ahead and get those points. It's not hard to come by. So let's flip over to the defensive side of the ball, something that excites me for Notre Dame. And this proves out they're the number one defense in pass efficiency. Okay, meaning not just yards, meaning the yards that should be expected for an offense. They are very efficient at stopping those coming up, rallying. They like to do, again, fundamentals. So throw the balls underneath, rally up, tackle, gang tackle, stop the big chunk plays on passing side. They have athletic guys in the tail end. Their linebackers can cover. What this means is they shorten the field. They don't have many yards to go. They put up points when they're there. But this just in, do you know who the second team in pass defense efficiency in the nation is, Daniel?
Hello, go on.
They're Texas. I just simply ask you, how did that play out for the, quote, elite defense in Texas? It didn't go so well because they played a cupcake schedule. And typically, when you play a cupcake schedule, this is what I'm trying. Statistics get a little skewed real quick.
Yes. Because
passing is hard. Passing's hard. The military academies do running because it's easier to run. It's more safe. It's more conservative. So what I'm trying to tell you is don't be alarmed at this discrepancy. I look at this discrepancy and say, this is very indicative of a schedule. They are still good, but Texas had the same thing, and Texas was a no-show against us. I actually think Notre Dame has a better shot against us than Texas because they're more physical than Texas is. However, be excited because our Bobo system will give Notre Dame fits. And we have now a running game back with Etienne and Frazier that can complement this well. I don't think they're going to have the efficiency to back up their offense because their offense hasn't been tested. And this just in, when you have the Butkus Award winner linebacker and you have guys coming off the edge like we do, Michael Williams and the sort who are getting going, that's going to put their offense in bad position. I really like our defense against their offense, Daniel.
Yeah. So some interesting thoughts on that, because you do mention Notre Dame, a very effective defense this year, especially against the pass. You look at it and they are first in completion percentage allowed, second in yards per pass allowed, third in passing yards per game allowed, fourth in interception percentage, and 25th in sack percentage on the year. So against the pass, this Notre Dame defense is really good.
Yeah.
But you have to dig a little bit deeper into the statistics, Clint, in order to ascertain that Notre Dame has played not one but two military academies on the year. Army ranks dead last in America in passing offense.
See what I mean by it's easier to run the ball than pass the ball?
Navy is fourth from last, by the way, ahead of Iowa in passing offense, which is just hilarious if you think about
But
Iowa.
He fired his son.
He did fire his son. Someone needed to fire him.
There it is.
They also played Clint, Florida State this year, who ranks 114th in passing offense. Wait, they also played Purdue this year, who ranks 118th in passing offense. Oh, no. Did I mention they lost to Northern Illinois this year, who ranks 123rd in passing offense? That is 6 teams in the bottom 20 in America, if you include Stanford, who they also beat this year, who is 110th in passing offense. 6 teams, half their schedule, Clint, in the bottom 20 or 25 in America in passing offense. So, yes, Notre Dame ranks really highly. It turns out Stanford, Northern Illinois, Army, Navy, these teams can't throw the ball against anybody. It ain't just Notre Dame that they can't throw the ball against. They can't throw it against anybody. Meanwhile, Clint, the only team, Georgia 13th in the nation in passing offense. The only team that Notre Dame has played with a better statistical passing offense than Georgia is USC.
How many? What happened there?
35 points against Notre Dame. Now, Notre Dame put up 49 against USC. Let me ask you this, Clint. Do you think Notre Dame's going to put up 49 points against Georgia?
And that USC team, by the way, was Miller Moss gone. Portal, he's no longer a USC Trojan. He was benched in favor of the backup. The offense has wide receivers that are hitting the portal as well. Tight ends hitting the portal. That USC team, really uninterested in that game, knowing it was the end of the season. Not as good as Georgia's offense. Let me say that again, because that's ridiculous what I just said. USC's offense is not as good as Georgia's offense.
Well, who's their offensive play caller?
If USC fan is here and you all haven't thought about firing Lincoln Riley and getting that, he's in Malibu in his mansion, and that's all he cares about. Just so you know, that's all he cares about.
The second best passing offense that Notre Dame played this season is Louisville, a team that they only beat by 7 points back on September the 28th. Again, I tell you, Clint, the Notre Dame team has struggled when they have played an offense even comparable to Georgia statistically. Yeah. Georgia doesn't have the most electric passing offense in the country. No. Okay? And nobody's sitting here telling you that. But what I am telling you is that compared to Notre Dame's schedule, they have not seen offenses like this. And the few that they have seen that compare to Georgia statistically, they have really struggled against.
And again, the closest comparison, Texas. We don't have the most electric pass offense. I'm not going to fight anybody on that. I would agree with you 1,000,000%. Texas is the closest comparable on pass efficiency, and our guys were lighting them up. I mean, drop passes were our biggest thing. Not getting open and not just dropping passes, but the plays were there. Even when Gunner came in, Gunner had a high completion percentage, had a bunch of chunk plays. The threat of a run is there, but what I'm telling you is, guys, Notre Dame's going to boast and beat their chest over their defense, and they're just like Texas saying we got the most elite defense. It's just not. It's not true. You have played a schedule and you are physical. I'm not saying you're bad. What I'm saying is you're not as good as you think. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. And I like our offense cooking against their defense. We're going to come back after this, tell you maybe some things that you should be looking for with some nervousness. But first, this. FanDuel's fantastic. FanDuel.com, the place to go right now because they're great. They're fantastic. They're lovely. Everything that you need to do for sportsbook betting is over there right now. The official sportsbook of Locked On Bulldogs, the official sportsbook of Locked On Podcast everywhere. Daniel and I love them. You should love them as well. FanDuel.com. Make every moment more. And right now you can go ahead and get early lines when we give locks for all the bowls. Get over there right now. When we're in New Orleans and you don't think that we'll be making wagers, we're going to be doing so on FanDuel.com is where we're going to be making our wagers at. for that game. We're going to be giving them to you right now. And right now, you make a $5 bet, you win, you get $150 in bonus bets straight to your account. Because FanDuel is the best. Official sportsbook of Locked On Bulldogs, Locked On Podcasts everywhere. FanDuel.com. Make every moment more. All right, let's talk about things that make us a little nervous. We talked about the excitement that I think they are inflated defensively. Daniel, where does this team, you go, hold on a second. If I was Marcus Freeman, I'd be spending a lot of time coaching, developing this game plan against Georgia. Where is that for you?
I don't think it takes a rocket scientist, Clint, to look at it and see. I've been saying this quite a bit to anyone who will listen. Notre Dame scares the crap out of me in terms of the Notre Dame offense versus the Georgia defense. We talked about the Georgia offense versus the Notre Dame defense. And I said in the last segment, tongue in cheek, in jest, Notre Dame's not going to score 49 points against Georgia. That's true. Okay. But you know what I do think they're going to be able to do, Clint?
What's that?
Stop me if you've heard this before. Control the clock.
I'm not going to stop you.
Limit possessions. And move the chains by running the football effectively, specifically with their big, old, physical quarterback. Riley Leonard is what scares me about this Notre Dame team. And if he doesn't scare you, again, there are always going to be those Georgia fans who are just going to pull the blanket up over their head and choose to ignore anything that they have seen that contradicts what they want to be true.
Yep.
This is why we wanted to play Texas and not Texas A&M in the SEC championship game, y'all. This is why we said on this podcast that if Steve Sarkisian had half of one brain, he would have played Arch Manning a heck of a lot more than he did in that SEC championship game, but he did not. Because big, physical, athletic quarterbacks have crushed Georgia this year. Like, you could say in longevity under Kirby Smart and Glenn Schumann, it's been a struggle. But, I mean, just go back to the Tech game, guys. Just like it's the easiest, most straightforward. Riley Leonard is a better throwing, bigger, stronger, more athletic, more experienced Haynes King. So if you liked playing defense against Haynes King,
I did not,
then you will love playing defense against Riley Leonard. The numbers are pretty self-explanatory. 124 carries. You know what that means, Clint?
What's that?
They know what he can do, and they like to let him do it.
Do they know who butters the bread, Daniel?
They know. There's a reason they're blowing all these fools out, because they know what works. 124 carries for 721 yards. That's 5.8 per carry.
Now, depending on where you look at, by the way, rushing yards and quarterback is very unique, by the way, because if a blown up play happens and it's scrambling, those are negative yards that come back and associate with him. You could take sacks out of some statistical. What I'm trying to tell you is a running back has plays running downhill most of the time. Riley Leonard might have a scramble in which he gets sacked on it. Might go 1 yard or something like that, close to the line of scrimmage. What I'm trying to tell you is he gets chunk yardage when he wants it.
He's got multiple runs over 40 yards on the year. He gets chunk yardage, and he's got a 66% completion percentage, which is not bad. 7.1 yards per attempt is not awesome. But he's thrown the ball 293 times on the year. And I'll say again, he's run the ball 124 times. So
second most on the team, and it's barely behind the leading running back.
Yeah, it's almost as low as 2-1 in terms of the amount of times that this guy, every time he touches the ball, if he's not handing it off, he's running it almost half as much as he's throwing it. It's a huge percentage of their offense.
You get 3 downs to get a first down, and then you got to make a 4th down decision. What you're telling me is that you could see him foreseeably run the ball on first down
every drive.
Okay, guys, this is the most concerning thing. If you were to put a spectrum down, and you were to put on one end Milroe, you were to put on the other end Quinn Ewers, okay, because those are the quarterbacks I'm just going to play this game with really quick.
Sure.
And
Where
you were
does
to
this guy
start.
land?
You put Haynes King. Haynes King is closer. He's on the other half of the Quinn Ewers train comparative to all these guys. Okay, to these four, he's closer to Quinn Ewers. Can throw, but not as accurate. Okay. Milroe is here. Riley Leonard is getting close to his. He does not possess the physicality that Milroe does. He's on a different planet.
No one does.
No one does. But he's close.
Yeah.
Like, he's close. And how he runs is not Marcel status, not Texas A&M status. He ain't sliding. Okay?
No.
Like, he is Arch Manning. And Arch Manning in that spectrum, by the way, is probably a far better thrower, I would imagine, than Leonard. But similar-ish in that big physical running style. I'm not scared of anything. He's got more Gunnar Stockton in him. Everybody going Gunnar Stockton's going to bring that juice. Yeah, you're right. He is going to bring the juicy offense.
Yeah.
So is Riley Leonard.
He's like Gunnar Stockton if Gunnar Stockton had 4 full years of college football experience. You don't have to be the best thrower in the world in college football, Clint. You just have to know where to look to find wide open guys. Because guess what? On 95% of the plays, there are wide open guys.
Because you have to account for this type of offense.
College defenses are not that good. Like they're just, the players aren't good enough to cover all the people all the time. The problem is you got to know where to look to find those wide open guys, right? There were 3 wide open guys on the play that Gunnar Stockton threw the interception on. 3. Riley Leonard knows where to look to find those guys. You don't have to be the best thrower in the world in order to move the ball effectively through the air. He's going to be able to do that. But what he's going to do is lower his shoulder and run straight at this Georgia defense. And I don't want to be the one to have to bring back up the S word, Clint.
Please do, though.
But we've said it so many times. This defense has shown a tendency to be soft.
They can be
times.
They can be. So if you're telling me that, and if I was Marcus Freeman, I would go to Kentucky film and I'd go to Georgia Tech film and I'd say, let's roll. And I would say, what are the top 10 plays that had multiple success rates against Georgia defense? And we're going to do that. I'm going to milk the clock. I'm going to limit possessions. I'm going to hit chunk runs in this. Isn't not a conservative offense because they're going to get multiple runs like that. But that's the kryptonite. That's the game plan. What Georgia has to do is you have to believe. And this is where we're going to do more look ahead as I come closer. But my hope in this is with Gunnar Stockton, actually slow starts likely are less possible with Gunnar Stockton in there. Because Gunnar, we just said, Riley Leonard's a little bit far better, more experienced version, but he's got the juice. Gunnar Stockton's going to tuck it and run far more frequently than Carson Beck did. And that's where you mitigate the slow starts. Georgia's offense gets off to a hot start and has open receivers with Gunnar. Okay. Now all of a sudden Notre Dame's playing from behind and they have to abandon that. Yeah. Now we got a thing cooking. You see, we got big old stew brewing. We're going to get to that much later, though. He is Daniel. I am Clint. This is Locked On Bulldogs, part of Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every single day. We'll be back all next week, every single day. Thank you for the first listeners, the everydayers, and we'll see you guys then.
See ya.